When my sister's wedding invitation arrived, I opened it with excitement. I held the envelope gently, smiling as I slid out the card, expecting to see something sweet or thoughtful. But as I scanned the front of it, my smile faded. There was no mention of my name. Not even a "with love" or "special thanks." All it said was "to our loving family." Just that. I stood there holding the card, blinking, thinking maybe there was a personal note inside. But there wasn't. Nothing. For a second I laughed it off. I told myself maybe it was just a printing error, or maybe they kept it simple for everyone. I didn't want to make a scene over a piece of paper. But deep down it stung more than I wanted to admit. I had done so much for this wedding. Not because I wanted praise, but because I thought I mattered. A few days earlier, I had cleared the final balance for the wedding venue. Before that, I paid for the lighting arrangements, even helped finalize the catering package when my parents said it was too expensive. I never made a fuss. I didn't even tell anyone about the total amount I had spent. I thought, it's my sister's big day, she deserves the best. So I just kept saying yes to everything they needed. I even skipped my vacation plans to save that money. I cut down on my own expenses, ate at home more, and worked extra hours so I could afford to help them. I never asked for my name to be put on banners or cards. All I wanted was a little acknowledgement. Maybe a thank you, or just a smile that said they appreciated me. But I guess I expected too much. The day before the wedding, I reached the venue early, wearing comfortable clothes and tying my hair up, ready to get things done. I didn't come as a guest. I came like a team member. I thought I'd just help out a little, maybe check on the flowers or see if the seating was correct. But the moment I walked in, people started handing me tasks like I was part of the staff. "Can you help with the centerpieces?" someone asked, pointing at a pile of flowers and vases. I nodded. Another person came by. "The tables need to be set. Plates, cutlery, everything." Then a vendor showed up with boxes, and I was the one who had to sign and carry them inside. No one said please. No one asked if I needed help. I moved from one corner of the hall to the other like I wasn't the bride's sister, but a wedding planner who didn't get paid. Hours passed. I was sweating, tired, and honestly a little dizzy. Not a single person offered me water. I had to sneak into the kitchen area and pour myself a glass. So I kept going. I told myself this is what family does. But every time I looked around, I saw relatives sitting comfortably, sipping cold drinks, chatting, laughing. No one noticed I was on my feet for hours. Then the guests started arriving for the rehearsal dinner. I wiped my hands and stood aside, thinking maybe I'd finally sit and relax. That's when I heard my mother's voice behind me. She was introducing me to someone, and she said, "That's just my elder daughter, she's helping us with everything." Just my elder daughter. Not the one who paid for the lights. Not the one who stayed up 3 nights comparing menus. Just the one who's helping. That one sentence hit me harder than I expected. But I smiled anyway. Smiled like it didn't matter. Smiled like I hadn't just been turned into background noise in my own family's story. My hands were sore and my back ached, but I nodded at the guests and quietly stepped aside. My sister walked past me a few minutes later. She was glowing, dressed beautifully, surrounded by her friends. She didn't even look at me. Not a smile, not a wave, nothing. I waited for her to say, "Thanks for helping," or even just a soft hi. But she walked right past, laughing at something her friends said. I stood there alone for a moment, watching them disappear into the decorated part of the hall, where everything looked perfect. And I realized, I wasn't part of that perfection. I was just part of the work that made it happen. The day of the wedding arrived, and I thought maybe things would be different. I'd spent so much time helping, sacrificing my own plans and comfort for this day. Surely today I would at least be treated like family. I had my dress on, a formal, elegant choice I thought would be fitting for the occasion. I even put on a bit of makeup, thinking I'd finally get to enjoy the wedding, be part of the celebration. But from the moment I walked into the venue, I knew it wasn't going to be that way. Before I could even find my seat, someone was handing me the bride's shoes and asking me to hold her dress as she walked down the hall. "Can you keep an eye on the kids too?" they asked, pointing to my little cousins who were running around causing chaos. I nodded, even though all I wanted to do was sit down and watch my sister, the bride, on her big day. But instead I found myself chasing after kids, holding onto shoes and managing little details no one else seemed to care about. Then came the real slap in the face. When I asked where I would be sitting, someone told me my seat wasn't in the main hall. Instead, I was directed to a small corner of the hallway, right by the washroom. I tried to hide my frustration, but it was hard to ignore. How could they do this? How could I, the one who had paid for so much of this wedding, end up seated in the hallway like an afterthought? I walked over to my spot, and before I could even sit down, someone whispered, "You're not really a guest, are you?" I wasn't sure if it was meant to be cruel or just thoughtless, but it hit me in the chest. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile. I don't need to make a scene, I told myself. This is her day. I'm here for her. But deep down the sting was too real. The hurt was buried beneath my smile. The ceremony began, and I waited for the food to be served. But as time went on, I noticed everyone else was getting their meals. The long tables were being filled, but no one saved a plate for me. I sat there, stomach growling, trying to stay calm. I thought maybe they'd bring me something soon. After all, I'd helped organize everything, including the catering, right? But no, nothing. The minutes stretched into hours, and I couldn't even find anyone to ask. I felt invisible. Then something else caught my eye. My sister's best friend, the one she'd been so close to since childhood, walked into the hall wearing the exact dress I had chosen for myself months ago. I had spent hours picking out my dress, thinking it would be the perfect choice for my sister's wedding. But she had taken it without even consulting me. I tried not to let it bother me, but seeing her wear what I had planned for myself was too much. My heart sank a little more. I was already feeling small, unnoticed, but the final blow came when my dad, my own father, looked at me and said, "You're really good at organizing, but you're not meant to shine." The words stung, and I felt the weight of them in a way I couldn't explain. It wasn't just what he said, it was the way he said it, as though I was a tool, a helper, a servant who was good at making everything run smoothly but didn't deserve to be a part of the celebration. I stood there, frozen, as the wedding continued, trying to hold back the tears. I had done everything for them, but it never seemed enough. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't family. I was just the one who made it all happen. And in that moment, I realized how deeply I had been taken for granted. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped outside, needing a moment of peace away from the noise of the wedding. I walked to my car, not caring who saw me leave. I didn't want to sit in that hallway anymore, didn't want to pretend I was okay. As soon as I got inside, I closed the door and sat there for a long time, the engine off, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The quiet felt surreal compared to the chaos of the wedding. I closed my eyes and let the memories flood back. The bills, the late nights, the sacrifices. The catering advance I paid out of my own pocket because my sister had forgotten about it. The lighting deposit I put down to make sure everything was perfect. The final balance for the venue, which I handled without a second thought, making sure there would be no issues. All those payments, every single one of them, was in my name. I looked down at my phone. There they were, the receipts, one after another, showing that it was me who had made sure the wedding went smoothly. I had paid for everything, no questions asked. I wasn't even asked if I could help, I just did it. But now, sitting in the car, I realized something that cut deeper than anything else. They had used me. They hadn't even cared. I wasn't seen as family. I wasn't treated with respect. I was just a bank account they could dip into whenever they needed something. A servant who didn't need any recognition. Tears welled up, but I pushed them back. No more tears. No more apologies. No more sacrifices for people who would never see me for who I was. I grabbed my phone, took a deep breath, and began calling the vendors one by one. First I dialed the caterer. "Hey, it's me. I need to cancel everything you've arranged for the reception," I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm inside. "I know it's last minute, but I can't go through with it. Please cancel the order." I hung up and immediately called the lighting company. "I need you to cancel the setup for the evening. It's not happening." Next I called the venue, explaining the same thing. I wasn't sure if they would even listen, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't going to let them use me any longer, not even for something as big as this wedding. With each call I felt a little lighter. It was as though I was reclaiming my power, taking back what I had so freely given. It wasn't about the money though. It was about dignity. It was about saying enough is enough. I wasn't their servant, and I certainly wasn't going to keep paying the price for their happiness while mine was ignored. By the time I finished the last call, I sat there in my car, breathing deeply, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. I had made my decision. I wasn't going back inside. Not now, not ever. As I sat in my car watching everything unfold from a distance, I could feel the chaos brewing inside the wedding venue. I didn't have to be there to know what was happening. I could already imagine the looks of confusion, the murmurs of the guests as they realized something was wrong. I could almost hear the frantic voices of my family as they tried to figure out how everything had fallen apart. I wasn't there, but I knew it was starting. Within moments, my prediction came true. The lights went out. Complete darkness. The beautifully decorated hall, once glowing with soft hues, was now plunged into blackness. Guests gasped in surprise, looking around, unsure of what was going on. Then, in the middle of the ceremony, the DJ, the one they'd hired to keep the music flowing, unplugged his equipment and walked out. No warning, no explanation, he simply left. The music stopped abruptly, leaving an uncomfortable silence that settled over the crowd. And it didn't end there. I could almost hear the caterers packing up the food, the trays of delicious dishes being wrapped up and carted away. The smell of freshly prepared food wafted through the air, and then just like that it was gone. The guests who had been eagerly waiting for the reception meal began to panic. They whispered in confusion, wondering what was going on, but no one had an answer. No one except for me. I was the one who had made the calls. I was the one who had taken everything away. Back inside, the sight of my sister crying on stage was all I needed to confirm that things were spiraling. She looked devastated, and for a moment I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered everything. The disrespect, the way they had treated me like I was invisible. She didn't deserve my sympathy. She deserved to see the consequences of her actions. I didn't want to stick around to watch the full disaster unfold. I didn't need to. The chaos had already begun, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I took out my phone, went straight to the family WhatsApp group and typed out a message. Hope the wedding feels extra special now, since the maid decided to cancel her service. Smiley face. I hit send, and as the message was delivered, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. They could feel the sting now. They could see the mess I had left behind, and there was nothing they could do to fix it. They had all taken me for granted. Now they would know what it felt like to lose everything in an instant. My phone started ringing almost immediately. One call after another. Mostly from family begging for answers, asking why everything had gone wrong. My mom's frantic voice was on the other end of the first call, shouting about how everything was ruined. What the hell did you do? You can't just cancel everything. We've worked so hard for this day. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned my phone off. I didn't need to hear their excuses, their anger, or their guilt. They didn't deserve my explanations. I had done what they had forced me into. I had walked away. The silence that followed the ringing felt like freedom. I wasn't a part of their plans anymore, not in the way they wanted. They had their day, and now they could face the consequences of their own actions. I had given them everything, my time, my money, my energy, and they hadn't cared. Now I was giving them nothing. The wedding, once meant to be the happiest day of my sister's life, was crumbling before my eyes. And I was okay with it. More than okay, I was finally at peace. I went home after everything fell apart, my heart heavy but strangely calm. I walked into my house, shut the door behind me, and immediately went to my bedroom. Without a second thought, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to listen to the calls, the angry messages, the guilt trips. I just needed a break, to breathe and let everything sink in. 2 days passed in complete silence. No messages, no calls, no notifications. The world felt so much quieter, and for the first time in a long time I felt a little bit of peace. When I finally turned my phone back on, it buzzed almost instantly. My screen was filled with messages, most of them from people I hadn't expected to hear from. I scrolled through them, my finger pausing at each one. "You did the right thing," one message said. "I would have done the same," read another. It was like a wave of support had suddenly washed over me, and I felt a strange sense of validation. People understood. People were on my side. One message stood out among the others. My aunt. She didn't mince words. "You're not the only one who saw the truth," she wrote. People walked out of the wedding hungry. The groom's family felt insulted. "I'm sorry you were treated that way. I can't believe how they all acted." I could practically hear her shaking her head as she typed. It wasn't just me who had felt the sting of betrayal. It was everyone. The wedding had fallen apart, and now everyone was starting to see the cracks I'd seen all along. The realization hit me then. My sister's wedding wasn't the beautiful day they had envisioned. It was chaos. People walked out of the reception without food, frustrated and confused. The guests who had once been excited for the celebration were now whispering about how the whole thing had gone terribly wrong. The groom's family, the ones who were supposed to be excited and welcoming, felt insulted by how poorly things had been handled. The wedding, once a joyous occasion, had turned into a disaster. And, of course, my sister and parents were trying to reach me. They called nonstop, each message more frantic than the last. "Where are you? Why did you do this?" My sister texted. My mom, of course, was in full-blown panic mode. "Call me right now. We need to fix this. This is ruining everything." I didn't answer. I couldn't. What was there to fix? They had ruined it themselves. The wedding wasn't the issue anymore. It was the way they had treated me. They had thought they could use me, push me to the sidelines, and still expect everything to go smoothly. They were wrong. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was fleeting. I had finally taken control. For once, I wasn't the one being used. I wasn't the invisible one in the background. I was standing up for myself. And that felt better than any apology they could ever offer. The truth had come out, and now it was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. After 2 days of silence, I finally agreed to meet my family. It wasn't something I was excited about, but I knew I had to face them eventually. The calls, the messages, they weren't going to stop. So when they invited me to a family gathering, I reluctantly accepted. I walked into the room, my heart racing just a little, but I wasn't going to back down now. I had already made my peace with everything. They'd have to hear me out. The moment I walked in, my sister's face twisted with a mixture of anger and hurt. She didn't even try to hide it. "You ruined my wedding," she said, her voice shaky with emotion, but I could hear the bitterness beneath it. She had been crying, and though I felt a small pang of guilt seeing her like this, it was quickly replaced by the anger I had been holding in. I didn't respond at first. I just took a seat, watching as my sister wiped her eyes. My parents stood behind her, looking just as uncomfortable as she did. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, to tell me I was wrong, to try and make me feel guilty. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I pulled out my phone, opened the file where I had saved every invoice, catering, lighting, the venue, everything. Each payment had been made in my name, each receipt proving that I had funded almost everything. I laid them out on the table one by one. "These are the payments you've been ignoring," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Every single one of them is in my name. I paid for everything, and you never even said thank you." I watched their faces as they processed the reality. My sister's tears slowed down, but her expression shifted from anger to disbelief. My mother, always the one to defend her, looked away, not able to meet my eyes. I felt no joy in their discomfort, only a sense of finality. This wasn't about proving a point. This was about truth. "You didn't ruin my day," I said, my voice a little stronger now. "You ruined your own by treating me like a maid. I wasn't just helping with your wedding, I was the one carrying it. But you never saw me as family. You saw me as a tool you could use." My sister opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood up slowly, the finality of the moment washing over me like a wave. "I'm done," I said, turning to face them one last time. "You're not going to use me anymore. And you don't get to guilt-trip me for doing what I should have done from the start, standing up for myself." With that, I walked out. No more words needed to be said. No more apologies needed to be made. I had given them everything. I had tried for years to be the family member they wanted me to be. But now I was walking away. And it felt right. For the first time, it felt like I was finally putting myself first. Months passed, and I heard the whispers. My sister's marriage was falling apart. Rumors spread, nothing official, but it was clear that things weren't going as smoothly as everyone had hoped. It wasn't my place to say anything, to point fingers. I didn't want her marriage to fail. But I couldn't help but think that maybe this was a consequence of how everything had unfolded. I had no hate in my heart, no satisfaction from seeing them struggle. I had walked away not out of spite but out of necessity. They had treated me like I didn't matter for far too long. And when I chose to walk away, I was choosing myself for once. The truth was, I didn't need them to validate me anymore. I didn't need their approval, their thanks, or their love. I had peace. And that was more than enough.